So today's webinar has been funded by the York and North Yorkshire Growth Hub, and it's part of a series of seminars that you may have been on some already, they may be planning others in future, there's another one tomorrow, and there's a couple more next week. Some of the stuff I may talk about today will be covered in more detail in some of those other seminars. If there's anything in particular that comes up today that's in those, you may want to refer to those. I've got a note of them somewhere, so I can give you the dates and times if needed. I'm an independent consultant, and I work for lots of different types of businesses in North Yorkshire and beyond, and I try to help them with their business in lots of different ways, but my priority is often based on marketing and attracting business. So today's webinar is about market research techniques, ideas about creating an effective marketing plan, putting sales at the forefront of your business, and your reputation management and PR. Typical, my phone's just rung, just one second. Thought I'd put that off before we started. So these are the 4 areas we're going to cover today, and hopefully you'll go away with some takeaways that you can use back in your own business and give yourself some structure and so on. Some people will have bigger businesses than others, and it'll depend on your needs and so on. But let's try and look at the broad brush of it to start with, which is researching your market. I believe strongly in research as part of your planning and setting out your goals for your business, because if you can take time to research in the first place, you've got a better chance then of working on the right kind of things for your business and helping it to grow and blossom and build relationships with your customers. So there's lots of places where you can actually get research free of charge. Bear with me a second, folks. I've got a load of people wanting to be admitted, so it's where. Okay, here we go. 3 more people joined us. Welcome. I don't know who's come in, but we'll carry on as we have started already. So often we think of research as being a bit boring and humdrum and so on, but actually it can be very valuable to us if we look in the right places, and it can help you to make decisions that might help you with trends. It might be to do with values and volumes and that sort of thing in terms of what's happening in other places with other businesses and what sentiment people have about certain things. So it's worth spending some time on research just to get yourself into a position where you've got a higher level of knowledge about what's going on, and that can come in all sorts of forms. So you might want to research your past and present customers. That's fairly straightforward. You know who they are, usually. You can ask them questions. You might want to look at your competition. You can go and look at it. You can go and visit it, not at the moment because we're all in lockdown, but in normal circumstances, you can go and research by just viewing things. So research comes in all those different kinds of forms. And it's important to look at what you actually want to achieve for your product offering by using the research to guide you, and focus then on your own core strengths in your business that then can take you forward in the future. So here are some examples where you can get free research on trends, customer types, and sentiment. And I've pulled out a few examples to show you the type of information you can gather, and it's all easily downloaded off websites and usually in PDF format, so you can easily print it if you need to, if you want to. And it can be a combination of these things, all of these different organizations in your own, in tourism and hospitality and generally can give you information that might be of help to you. Visit Britain and Visit England in particular have a wealth of information on their website. It's a bit of its high level, if you like, whereby you're getting the broad brush of the whole country. And sometimes you might think, well, that's not of much interest to me as a local business, but it might do. It might guide you as to what's happening in other parts of the country, and to give you perhaps comparisons in other places whereby you've got a similar business, say in North Yorkshire, to something in another county. I don't know, Scotland, Cornwall comes to mind, that kind of thing. So you can make comparisons from research as to how you're doing against those kind of figures. So as you see here, we've got Visit England, Visit Britain, Welcome to Yorkshire. Don't do as much research as they used to do. I think they rely more on the Visit England data nowadays and contribute to it. But other organisations in destinations do carry out research. It's important to find out who does what, and then get that information from them. Local authorities, national parks. If you're in the business tourism sector, if you have business travel customers, or you have an events venue or attraction, then the Business Visits and Events Partnership is a very good source of data, as is the Tourism Society, the Tourism Alliance, and for overseas business, particularly UK Inbound is a very good organisation to have a look at. They conduct their own research amongst their members, and also with consumers that are actually taking up those products. So you get a copy of this slideshow afterwards if you want it. So if you want to make notes, go for it now, or take a screenshot. But I'll certainly enlarge on this in a moment. Here's one slide showing an example of a page from Visit England, Visit Britain. And you'll see here there's three headings: volume and value, tourism business research, and consumer behaviour. So those three headings in the lower half of this slide give you a flavour of the kind of detailed information that they can provide you with. So we have the value of tourism in England, the Great Britain Tourism Survey, that tells you about the domestic overnight tourism statistics that they gather, and also day visitors and that sort of thing. So if you're an attraction, you might be more keen to look at the day visitor figures. If you're an accommodation provider, you might be more inclined to look at the overnight tourism figures. There's destination specific research, there's activity research, and so on and so forth. And it can be a minefield if you're not careful. So you really need to look at the headings and look at what kind of things you're trying to identify. But often people want things that are about detail. So when you drill down into these surveys, you can get that detail and look at it in relevance to your own business. Visit England and Visit Britain are also doing regular updates during this COVID period as well. So they do this annual survey for overnight trips, day visits, occupancy data, an annual attractions survey, and so on. And I'm just letting some more people in, just bear with me. Okay. Hello and welcome, and you've just joined. Thank you. And then you might also look at data like this, which is more about the tracking of how things are working. So in this case, we're looking at domestic day visits in England and the value of visits over a 12-month rolling trend. So there's volume and value being shown on here. So in this particular example, they're showing an increase in day visit spend, whereas visitor attraction spend had seen a decrease. These are 2019 figures that we're showing on here. So that may be interesting to you, it may not, but it might give you some example of trends that are in place, taking place. Again, percentages of change year on year. and on a rolling month basis as well. So you get this sort of this ongoing results, if you want. This one's showing a slide on the slide, August 2019 results. So it's just, I just grabbed this off their website to show you today. But in that particular case, you can see here in Yorkshire and Humberside, we see a 2% increase year on year from 2018 to 2019 in occupancy. So you might see that as being a demand rising. So your business might have some relevance to it. Interesting, on smaller establishments, same figure, 1 to 25 room establishments, the same figure as the general. So there are things you might get from that. This sort of information from these research sources is often very useful as well. The types of customers that you might be looking to target. So here we have 5 examples of the types of customers that Visit England have identified. Some may apply to your business. You may want to target some of these. You can see the proportion of the types of customer that they've identified as a proportion of the whole. So if you're looking for family markets, you can see that they're here at number 5, aspirational family fun. You might be looking at those stats in more detail. This is just a broad brush of it, really, but you might go into the detail of the stats for that and find that those London-based high earners are your target market. And is it then you look at, when we come to marketing and selling, that you actually focus your resources on that particular market, and so on and so forth. So you can use the information to make your own decisions about how you take your own business forward. A bit more granular data here. This is an example of the value of, the volume of number of trips in all the regions in the country. And if you look along the highlighted angle here, you can see if you go to Yorkshire and Humberside, and then look at the figure there, 2.247 million people visit Yorkshire and Humberside from within Yorkshire and Humberside. So there's a lot of business on our own doorstep. I mean, we're a big county, let's face it, so it's logical, I suppose. But our next nearest visitor, if you look down this list here, is from the northwest of England. Well, perhaps that's the geography, people coming from the west to the east to visit the county is a pretty good thing. And then the East Midlands. So we'll see in a minute how travel relates to that as well. But these are broad brush figures for the areas. But again, this particular report that this slide was taken from has much more granular information that you can gather when you're looking at what information you need. And then there's things like this, where you can look at average spend figures. Again, these may be helpful in guiding you as to what your pricing structure might be. You can see what the average spend of certain things here are, what the main activities, types of destination visited, and how much people spend per visit. So combining that with the volumes, you can quickly work out what the total value is going to be of that kind of business. And it might guide you on pricing, as I say. Again, the occupancy surveys and things like that provide you with average spends on individual items as well, such as hotel accommodation, self-catering accommodation, and so on and so forth. That granular information is where you'd probably get your guidance. And then we move on to who these people are. Now, this is a slide that, again, I took from the annual survey, which was done at the end of 2019 into 2020 before the current crisis. But it's a factual thing here, really. The number of people, here's an interesting facts, if you like. Number of people aged 60 years and older will outnumber young children younger than 5 years between now and 2030. Well, I'm afraid I'm unfortunately in the first one of those figures rather than the latter, but and it's going up, you know, so more people in 2040 even, so more people aged over 65 than under the age of 24. So think about that in terms of how you're reaching your market, who are you going to attract, and what kind of people you might want to attract. These can be an influence on your decision making and help you to think, well, where is my market going to be in future? These surveys that these organisations do can give you lots of other information as well. And here's an example of the kind of activities research that Visit England have done. And you can drill down onto these and check about the you know, the sort of demands that people might have for certain activities. Food's a very interesting area because the change in the market at the moment because of COVID, with restaurants and pubs and so on closed, means there's a lot more delivery services going around and lots more takeaway work business going on at the moment. But where will it go in future? Some of the more recent regular research that they're doing may provide some answers to that. But this kind of information here is very useful when it comes to developing your products, developing your services. Because if you have some idea from this information about what people's expectations are and what their experiences elsewhere have been, you might be able to formulate your own products and services that will match and hopefully exceed their expectations. I mentioned travel. This slide again has come from the annual survey and shows the shorter the travel time, the greater the potential to attract visitors. So I suppose that takes us back to our other figure of the number of people from Yorkshire visiting Yorkshire. If you're in the county already, there's so much to see. You don't need to go anywhere else really, do you? But the travel time is likely to come down in the short term because of COVID situation. But it's been known for a long time that the average is about 2 hours for people traveling for breaks and that sort of thing. But again, it does vary from place to place and from time of year as well. But this is part of their experiential activities research that is linked to those other things I mentioned about people's expectations of products and services. I mentioned also the current sentiment tracking. This is the last wave that Visit Britain have done about consumer sentiment tracking. And from this report, you can see how the changes that are being made by government about what we're allowed to do or not are changing people's attitudes towards what they'll do next. So from this research, you could possibly find some indications, and you can find some indications of what kind of timescale people expect to make a booking in the near and distant future, and what time scales they might think they might travel. It's only indications that they're getting, but they're getting these surveys done every month and doing them by on a weekly sort of rolling program. So it's fairly broad based, but you can see when you look at it in detail that there are changes from month to month. But that's much related to the things like vaccines going on at the moment, people not being allowed to travel overseas, so people are looking at having more holidays in Britain because they'll not be able to get overseas in the short term, and so on and so forth. Worth having a look at that on the Visit Britain website. I mentioned business travel. This is just a screenshot of the Business Visits and Events Partnership, which is a collection of organisations throughout the country who are involved in creating events. So this can be from business meetings and events to weddings, to outdoor events, conventions, and so on and so forth. And some of these organisations create an awful lot of value in the country, and can have an impact on a location. Events drive a lot of business. It's worth, the business itself was worth around 70 billion a year to the UK. And so when you're looking at a local activity and events program, that contributes to that overall 70 billion figure. There's a very detailed report called the Overview of the UK's Events Industry, the UK Events Report. I was fortunate to be able to be involved in this one and contributed to it in many ways with colleagues. And the results of that report give you indications of the kind of overall mix of activity that goes on throughout the country during the year and in normal times. And the BVEP is sort of a voice to government, because it links in with the Events Industry Board, which has a parliamentary member on its committee. So they're feeding information directly into the government about the events industry. They're not being heard very much at the moment, unfortunately, because of so many other industries and so on clamouring for help. But it's an ongoing effort, and the research work that's done to provide this information to government is hopefully helping to guide some of the decision making. But hey, we'll not get into politics, eh? However, you can get some more detailed information from these kind of reports. As you can see here, some examples of the kind of data that it will provide for you. If you look at the types of events, associations, conferences, international, a much higher value at 1,021 per delegate than conferences and meetings that are international, 856. Exhibitions and trade fairs, 352 is the average spend per delegate. And then corporate conferences and meetings, exhibitions, domestic and trade fairs. So the average is there, £613 per delegate spend when an event's taking place. And again, by region, they don't divide it up other than London, England, Scotland and Wales on this one. But again, you'll get more of those kind of data sets from such a report as that. And quite an interesting one, the lower one on these three, the mix of spend on different elements of events. So as you can see, the most expensive part for a delegate is actually registering for the event itself, which is accommodation at the top, almost at the top as well, and so on and so forth. So if you've got local events taking place, bear this sort of thing in mind, because that kind of business is bringing business for other businesses in the area when it's being held. It's not just about the statistics that the event itself creates. It's actually it's the overflow to the rest of the economy that you as a business can benefit from by seeing what events are taking place and getting involved and finding out about those kind of events, because you might get that business. If you're an accommodation provider and delegates are coming to travel and stay, you want those people to come and stay with you. If you're an attraction, you might want them to encourage them to stay on longer and have a visit to your attraction as part of their visit to the location where the event's being held. There's lots of ways to think about this. And then there's this one. This is probably the least useful in some ways, because the National Office for Statistics do produce, as it says here, 77 sets of data about travel, transport and tourism. Much of it is that they check also against statistics produced by other people. And so if somebody makes a claim, for example, that X thousands of millions of pounds will be created by such and such a project going ahead, they will check that statement of fact to see whether it's true. So there's that kind of thing goes on behind the scenes. So you can go into the National Statistics databases, sorry, a website, and look at those kind of things if you really want to. I'm not sure it's the kind of thing I would do, but it's certainly, it's there. And it's, if you've got to check something, or you've got something that you need to get more data and information about, then you can go and look for it there. Okay, so that's, if you like, the official sources of information that you can gather and do research from, and that's there all the time for you to get free of charge, the examples I've given you. But I think there's an important part of research that is to do with your own business and to do with your own customers and your competition and so on. So doing some research about your own customers might bring you some interesting outcomes. If you don't ask them what they think, then how do you know? I know people use TripAdvisor, and it's certainly worth checking what people are saying on TripAdvisor on a regular basis, so that you're up to speed with views and so on. And you can also use it to check what people are saying about your competition. But you've got to know who your competition are as well. So think about that and think about what fits with your business. But asking customers themselves to give you feedback in a more direct way is probably more productive, because you can get specific questions answered, you can answer questions to them, and it'll maybe guide you as to where you actually place your offers in future, and how people, what people expect. If you get their feedback direct, you've got a much better dialogue with them than just relying on third-party information. And researching your other businesses, I said earlier, you can just walk into them in normal times and go and see what they're up to in a way. But if you keep your nose to the ground, as it were, and listen to what people are saying in different ways, you'll understand what you're up against when it comes to competition. But I think the third item on here is perhaps the more important one for me, and that is researching trends and fashions and things that are happening elsewhere. You can gather great ideas from other places, and you can pick up trends and perhaps use that knowledge of trends and new ideas and apply them to your own business. I once attended a course, it's a long time ago now, by an American called Murray Raphael, and he was the author of a book called The Great Brain Robbery. And his principle was, no idea is ever new. It's always been stolen and remodeled. So if you're looking at trends and you're looking at what's going on and reading lifestyle magazines, looking at things online and so on, you might get some ideas about how to apply some kind of great idea that somebody's had to your own business. So that kind of research is more, it's more esoteric. It's a bit more, and it's actually a bit more interesting research than the stuff we've talked about so far as well. So have a think about that and see if there are sections of your Sunday paper. I read the Sunday Style section of my paper, and I actually know a little bit about women's fashion because I read it. Now, I don't need women's fashion, but if my clients are looking at ideas that will attract, and I'm not being sexist here, by the way, put that warning in earlier, but if they're looking to attract women, then maybe looking at those fashion pages might give me some clues about the kind of things people are reading about these days. You know, do we need to include things that they might want in a package, for example? So you can get ideas from it, basically, and it's free. And of course, social media is the big thing of the century, really. And I'm not going to go into a social media session here. Susan Briggs is running one of those next week. So that's one of the ones I mentioned earlier, this sessions. But here's a trend that I picked up from Twitter, 300% increase in tweets about cooking in 2020. Well, you might not be surprised by that. we've all been at home and we want to do something, and cooking might be a pastime that people have taken up that they didn't do when they were out at work all day. I know certainly some of my friends have done so, and but it might be that that trend gives you an idea for your business to include food in cooking and cooking in your packaging. It's just one example. There'll be dozens of others if you just do a bit of searching. You can use platforms like Hootsuite, which are software that help you to distribute your social media posts in one place. And they do research documents and papers that you can download and so on. That's where I got that fact from one of Hootsuite's papers. And of course, Facebook is the big social connector. Whether you like it or not, some people do, some people don't, but they certainly are creating opportunities for businesses to gather information as well as post information. So when you start looking through Facebook, you can find these special interest groups that might just help you to get to a market that you want to reach. You know, if you have, let's take the cooking example. You decide to have a cookery school because you've looked at the trends and you've got the facilities and you may as well make use of it. And you start doing cookery school packaging. Might there be cookery school interest groups that you could join and communicate what you're doing with people and so on? So the conversation you have with people then is narrower and more direct. We're going to talk about direct marketing in a minute as well. So certainly worth having a look at groups on Facebook. There are probably going to be other new things coming in future as well, which we'll touch on, but that's one to think about. So now let's think about your plan and what you're going to do next to, let's just, this is just an example of a SWOT analysis. Have you ever done a SWOT analysis? Probably some people have, probably some people haven't, but I picked this one up from a LEP document. And this was a SWOT analysis on North Yorkshire. And as you can see, strengths are, this is tourism in North Yorkshire. Excellent existing attractions, destinations and natural resources. Great local tourism offices and organisation networks. A tourism organisation with a strong Yorkshire brand and links to Visit England. That's referring to Welcome to Yorkshire, I guess. A great variety of destination types. And then on the weaknesses, we've got a lack of joined up vision, it was said. There's too many politics, diversity of attractions. So doing this kind of exercise can actually make you stop and think about your own business as well when it comes to what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, how can you find new opportunities, and again, what are the threats? You know, the threats can be loss of certain things in your situation. If people are just in one market, for example, and that market disappears or shrinks, then that's a big threat. So you might need to look for an opportunity in another market and develop your business in a different way. So it's worth doing this every so often, just to double check what your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats actually are, because they can change. And then I'm moving now on to your branding and what you look like to others. You know, one of the arguments I often have with people in the businesses is about using the same photograph or image all the time. Well, John, we ought to be changing the picture. It's getting a bit boring now, you know. Or you change your logo because you think it's a good idea. And I think it's important to think about that carefully. Yes, certainly review what your branding and your collateral looks like from time to time, but don't necessarily change it just for the sake of changing it, because consistency and recognition are really quite important. I ran a hotel in York for about 12 years. It's now the Marriott. And we were the first to have a leisure club there. And when we first began marketing the leisure club, we decided to use the headline "Relax." And so for 12 years, every ad we did had the word, for the leisure club this is, had the word "relax" at the top of it. And it actually cemented the leisure club as being something really easily recognized. And it had its own brand at the bottom as well. That was a company hotel, so it was branding by the company anyway. But people used to often say to me, "It's getting a bit boring," but we got members every year, and all the advertising we did and all the marketing we did to get people to become members, it was consistent. And so by being consistent and getting that recognition, I think it's important to think it carefully through. Chopping and changing all the time just confuses people. And yes, make some perhaps subtle changes from time to time. But if you've got a logo that you like and it's worked for you so far, think hard about changing it or not. But you do need to think about this side of it. You know, what do you want to be as a business? Do you want to be aspirational? Are you traditional? Do you have a family appeal? Have you got a business focus? Do you want to attract groups? If you've got an attraction and a venue, I work at the World of James Herriot, and our core market there is groups. So all of our marketing activity is focused on that market, and then other markets come anyway. Oh, thank goodness we've got a TV series about all creatures, so that helps, but massively. But we've certainly been very, very narrow in our thinking about how to generate volume of business by focusing on the groups market. We tried schools for a while, thinking that the educational side of it would work, but decided actually no, it's not bringing us enough business and it's too complicated. So let's go back to basics and go for groups. So just think about that in terms of what you want to be as a business, and you might have decided about that from the research you've done. You might find you've looked at other businesses, you might want to emulate some other business somewhere else or be better than them or something of that ilk. But thinking about how you're seen is important. But often it's in the detail, the devil's in the detail. And so it's really sensible to look at your website. It's your shop window. And sometimes I look at websites and think that they haven't thought this through. I mean, there's some great websites, don't get me wrong. There's some really good designers, but it's important to check it yourself and get other people to check it and check it on different devices. You know, does it have the correct branding on it? Does it look the same in the right places? Is it quick to load? Is it easy to navigate? Have you got good photography? That's really important, really, really important. And does it work on everything? There's nothing worse than somebody trying to get to your business and then giving up because they can't get to the booking button because it doesn't load properly on a phone. Majority of people use phones now, or desktops, tablets somewhere in between. But it's got to work properly on them all. So check that often, and don't just use your own devices. Borrow other people's as well to check. And online booking. Well, if you haven't got online booking, you must get it. It's so important. It just is the way people have moved. You know, it's the 3 clicks and you're done kind of principle. Think about how big Amazon is. It's 3 clicks and you've got your stuff on the way. Same needs to apply to your business in a way. And then content. You can write content yourself, but often it's better to get somebody else to write it in the third person. But putting links into other businesses and inviting them to link with you, putting links from pages to pages so that you've got inside your website, you've got relevance. Because when the search engines are looking, when somebody puts a search term in, they're looking for relevance. So the more relevant each page is to its other pages, the better your site will be on search engine results. And don't forget to make sure people are invited to sign up for your mailings with a sign up here button, or a pop up of some sort that invites them to keep in touch with you. Especially with GDPR, you've got to be careful that people are willing and want to get your information, and why not make it easy for them? Okay, we're on the last quarter of the session now, folks. So you've done your research, you've decided your target markets, you've got your collateral on brand, and you've set your goals. I haven't gone into financial stuff here at all, of course. This is not about the business side of it, it's about the marketing of the business. But writing a marketing plan can sometimes be seen as a big elephant in the room. I've got to write that plan, I don't really know, have time, or I don't have the skill, or whatever. It's not that difficult, but if you've done the other stuff first and you've thought it all through, it'll make it a lot easier to write your plan and decide what you're going to do. And so keep it simple. It's an old adage, but it still applies. Don't make it too complicated. If you just set out what you're trying to achieve, sit down and write an action plan, decide how you're going to connect with people, which tools are you going to use, agree who's going to do what. Sometimes it might be that there's somebody in the team, if you've got a number of staff, who could be good at doing something, and it might relieve somebody else of doing that job that isn't as good at it. So find out who's good at what within your team and see who's going to do what. Some people might be better at doing social media in your team than you, so why not delegate it to them? Always review how you're getting on, because if it's not measured, well, you don't know where you're going with it, and adjust things as you go along. So it's not set in stone. A plan is only a starting point, and so keep adjusting it as things change and as you gather more information as you go along. It's important to keep yourself free of restriction in that sense. Keep an open mind about what other opportunities might come along, and add them into your plan if they're going to be a good idea, or take stuff out if it isn't working as well. What's that old saying? If you keep doing the same thing all the time and expect a different result, you're insane, or whatever. I can't remember the correct thing of that. But anyway, it can be as simple as just making up a calendar of activities. Just get a diary and write in it, or do it on your computer or whatever. Just write into a diary of some sort what you're going to do on what day, or what month, or what week, or whatever. Just simply follow that kind of diary. But for bigger businesses, obviously, it might be a bit more complex. You might want to have a plan for social media, a plan for direct marketing, a plan for PR, which I'm going to talk about briefly shortly as well, a plan for each element of the marketing plan. It depends on your business, really. But if you don't plan it, well, it won't happen, really. You want, poor planning leads to poor results. So this is really the crux of today, is planning from the information you've gathered, understanding what you're trying to achieve, and then making it happen by planning it in a good way. And involve your team. I think that's important. Set your goals, set your intentions, create your plan, and make it happen. You can plan by months. Break your goals down into bite-sized chunks. So you might want to try and achieve certain levels of business or types of customers, or certain promotions might happen in certain months. It's Valentine's Day on Sunday, so nobody's going out for Valentine's this year. But next year, maybe in February, you might be planning to get a Valentine package, and you measure how you get on with it, and that's your plan for February. What's going to go into that month? But when you're doing your planning in months like that, it's important to set your own business goals in that, and your own personal goals. Give yourself time to do everything, and don't don't just think of it as a business plan. It's about how you apply it as well to yourself. An editorial calendar is a good idea. If you think about blogs, emails, social media, and PR, having a sort of idea of what stories you can bring together for each period. It might just be that you look at things that will help you to do that. So look at other calendars of what's going on in the world, and maybe align your monthly themes to things that are happening elsewhere. So off the top of my head, I'm thinking, say, in September, Macmillan Cancer Research do a coffee morning. Would you do that and make that part of your activities in September? And so on. And you can do it by weeks as well. So track pages of activity on a weekly basis. I was talking to a client yesterday, and we've decided to do a weekly social media plan, which will be two posts a week about a particular topic. And we're going to start in March, and we'll start with spring, with spring themes. So all throughout March, each week there's going to be a spring theme, and that's part of the weekly plan. And then, but the total of the weekly plan is the monthly plan. So building it up. So getting into these habits of just having a regular set of activities going on does start to help things to happen and bring business in. And then, of course, measuring it and tracking it helps you. If you can see where you've actually made progress and you've got some wins in the bag and so on, or things that didn't work, you can then do that adjustment that I talked about earlier, where you might want to drop something or modify it or bring something different in instead, because what you started off with as great, seemed like a great idea, didn't actually work. Because not all the ideas do work, you know. If you don't have any and don't do any, that nothing will work. But if you keep trying with different ones, some will work and some won't. So it gives you a place to be effective. This is the point of the marketing plan, is to be effective and generate consistent leads and then sales, because you haven't got the business until somebody actually buys it. You know, somebody buys your product, then they're a customer. But it's important that you manage that, so that it's not the business running you, it's you running the business and the market. I'm very much one of, you do it with love, and you do it with passion, and you do it with enthusiasm. And I'm sure everyone listening to this is of that mindset when they think about their own business. But sometimes you forget about yourself, so remember about yourself as well, and make sure you give yourself time and make the efforts you put into planning and working on this benefit you in bigger ways than that. And this is my final section, or final section, should I say, this is my speaker's corner spot, where I want to say to people, be totally sales-minded. It's the oxygen of your business. If you don't have sales, you haven't got a business, basically. But it's often important to, or it is very important, it's often forgotten, but it's very important to include everybody in the business in sales. Everybody can have an impact. So everyone's attitude can change the way a business develops and is successful or not. So when people are being recruited, think about what their attitudes are like when you're interviewing them. Are they of your like-minded positiveness? Are they going to be able to be trained to help you to get to those customers and that target market that you're aiming to achieve in the way you want them to? And if you're a sole trader, you're just a very small business, be your own trainer about getting information and knowledge. Set out some time for yourself to gather the information about new trends and technology and so on and so forth, because that's you training yourself. Self-coaching is easy to do. You just have to apply it to yourself. But it's actually having that sales-minded thing, so everybody's thinking, this is business, we've got to do it, you know, we've got to get there, we've got to be enthusiastic. I'm sure it happens in most places, but I have seen it not. And it's a change of mindset that can happen that changes a business from being mediocre to being fantastic. Then there's some tools again. What channels to sales are you going to get involved in? Are you going to work with other systems? You might have a system of your own, but you might want to plug into other systems. Many hoteliers bemoan the online travel agencies, but they all use them because they get business. And it's picking the right partners in these channels and using the right technology to reach your markets as well. Obviously, booking direct is everybody's holy grail, rather than through other partners. So encouraging customers to direct book is part of your sales activity. It's about getting people to buy you and your business and your people and your products and your services in a direct way, because you'll have a better relationship with them if they book direct, and you can probably get a higher value of overall expenditure with you than through those other sources, because the other sources take their slice, don't they? You know, this is one I thought I'd bring in here, pretty new thing. Some of you may have heard of it, the new TXGB, Tourism Exchange Great Britain initiative. This is, you can sign up for this, and it's a tool designed to get customers from looking to booking. I think Visit Britain's and Visit England and the other DMOs have struggled with this for many, many years, finding a way to make Britain bookable. And I think this is probably the closest they've got to it, in my experience, over 30 or 40 years of being in tourism and hospitality. And so if you've got a booking engine already, if you're an accommodation provider, you can link direct into this TXGB. Welcome to Yorkshire are teaming up with it. Visit York, a number of other destination management organisations are teaming up with it. If you just go and visit England's site and have a look, you'll find it. Just put in the search TXGB. You can sign up for it, and I've done it for three businesses so far. A medieval hall that's going to be turning itself into a tourist attraction in York that's previously been a hall for hire. We've signed up the World of James Herriot because it's already in place, and I've signed up a small B&B recently who has got a booking engine already, and it was really simple. I just connected it straight in, and so whatever channels TXGB produces, they'll be sending business to those properties once business gets going again. You pay 2.5% commission for bookings, but that's quite low compared to the likes of Booking.com at 15 and 20% sort of figures. I mentioned directly connecting with customers. Try as much as you can to engage directly with getting their permission to mail them. Use your social media to do that as well. When you're developing your social media activity, I'll leave Susan to go into that in more detail next week for you all. Video, very important. We're in the TikTok generation now. I don't like it myself. I think it's pretty rubbish, but that's me. I'm an old hack now. I think the video explosion that's going on at the moment is amazing, and we've all got the ability now to be a producer, director, and bit part actor in that. So use video in different ways. It's good for social media. It's good for marketing, promotions, and so on. So think about how you might get some advice about video and make use of it to expand your offer to people. And then there's big data. These kind of organisations, Groupon, Living Social, and so on. I've put a big warning on here. Proceed with caution. They can be useful because they've got massive data. Travelzoo has 4 million members in the UK, for example. But I'm putting a caution note on here because, you know, don't get into the fact that that's the only place you get business from, where you have to then pay them 20% commission or more. Managing your reputation. I'm running out of time, folks, but I don't mind carrying on if you want to. I quite understand if people leave the meeting. Keep on top of this, review sites, because your the reputation is being looked at on these things, and you need to just keep on top of it and reply to things promptly if you can. It's a good idea to reply, even if it's good or bad. Creating great stories, sharing your news and things that are going on in your business and around it with your customers is a good idea. Regular newsletters. You can use things like this. Days of the Year is an online portal where you can find out in advance what the day of the year might be. So if it's next week's Shrove Tuesday, okay, so that's the day of the year for next Tuesday. You might do a pancake theme. Create offers that combine more than one product. Afternoon tea and leisure here as an example. And then plan these regular time-bound promotions. So where you know there's going to be gaps in your demand, time your promotions to fill those gaps and make them time-bound in terms of time to be able to book and time to be able to arrive, so that there's a control mechanism in there that manages that gap, if you like. And then work with others. Creating partnerships with other businesses is really, really a great idea, because if you can help each other, you can pool your resources, and it could be one other business, it could be many other businesses, and finding businesses that will work with you and can complement your business, so that you can offer a bigger offer to your joint customers is a great idea. And here's something novel. You could pick up the phone and ring people. I think the age of making phone calls is seemingly dead. Mine rang this morning, so that's a bit of a change, isn't it? But what about ringing customers now and again and asking them how they are and what they're doing and when they're coming back? Depends. You might not have time for that, but there might be other people in the team who could do it. And it might be a little exercise to try, just to get some feedback. Try it anyway. And then I'm going to finish on PR. If you have got all that other stuff in place, and see, the phone does ring. Should have left that switched off, but there we are. PR is something that I really believe people can do more of, and it's not difficult. It can get you enhance your reputation. This is the official definition: the practice of managing the spread of information between an individual or an organization and the public. Okay, that's the official definition. You can get content for your PR from all sorts of places. It can be your own news, it can be your staff, it can be your customers, it can be events that are taking place, it can be your promotions. Are you leading a trend? Are you setting something up that nobody else has done yet? You can get PR for awards, enter awards like the annual White Rose Awards. Entering it means you can say you're an entrant. If you get shortlisted, you can say you're a shortlisted entrant or a finalist. If you get a place but don't win, you can say you're a finalist and you were a runner-up. If you win, well, that's even better. And so awards are worth looking at. They do take some time to do, but the rewards for awards is pretty good. News releases are not difficult. I've done a little bit of a structure here for you. Keep it short. Always make sure your phone number and email address are included. People often forget the basics of those. Break the story into short sentences. It's about writing it in a third person. So you've got to, when you write a news release, think about who's reading it. Think about what they're going to be thinking. It's about the activity that's going on and that you're letting people know about. And facts like dates, time and location, and no superlatives. Nothing is wonderful in a news release. Let the editor decide that and let the reader decide that. And photographs are really important as well to send with a news release. And a tip I'll give you is when you send a photograph by email, before you send it, rename the file name with who's in it in order left to right. So the editor doesn't have to go searching around to say who's who when they put the photograph in the publication. And so build relationships with the media. If you get a good relationship with your local media, they'll start being your ally. They will come to you looking for ideas for features, and they'll ask you for quotes for interviews when things come up that they need to get an angle on, and so on. So cultivate that that relationship with your local media, and that can be national, that could be local, regional, national, print, broadcast, and so on, whichever you can find time to do. But it's certainly important to have the same sort of relationships with the media as you have with your customers. It helps punch you above your weight because people keep hearing about you in a different way, gets you recognised, helps with your management of your reputation. It motivates your team because they love being in the papers or whatever, on the telly or on the radio, and it's really can be great fun. If you got attention, you can have good fun with it. So if you combine that with all your other marketing activity, it's sort of it adds to the profit of your business, really. And then finally, or almost finally, I always advocate developing your own big idea. So look, the most recent and biggest big idea in Yorkshire was the Tour de France, and that was a big idea in action, and it certainly put Yorkshire on the map internationally. And so you can do that yourself with your own business. You can think of something that other people aren't doing. You might want to become the first eco something in your business. You might want to be developing something that is a new product line in your business, and so on. So thinking of something that you can be an early adopter of and action something with will get you that, help you with that press coverage as well, because you'll be the one that people see as being the innovator. And my final point is really easy. Don't give in. Keep at it, because you haven't failed until you back in, have you, really? It's a long way from being normal at the moment. But by planning and thinking and getting that information together and then executing it in savvy ways, you can make your business a lot more fun, healthy, and successful in the future.